Okay, we're back for episode 25 of Building the Box, now renamed Out of the Box. Why the change of names? A few reasons. Firstly, we're starting to get more guests on, and I think Building the Box is expanded beyond what it was originally set out for. So I think it makes sense to slightly change the name so that when we do have guests on, we can talk about some stuff that isn't shirt in the box. We've already had Jamie and Connell on, so yeah, I wanted to change the name to reflect where we were going. And then secondly, I think it's just way more catchy, like Out of the Box. I think if I ever started a holding company where we had tons of different brands, I call it Out of the Box. Like if I had an agency, I call it Out of the Box. I think the box is going to stick with us forever, but that's my thoughts. And I think it's time now to do it because we're on episode 25, which is a milestone in itself, and we've hit 25 weeks of consecutive uploads. And so as we grow, you change. You don't have the same haircut in your 20s as you did when you're in your teens. So I feel like it was a good time to switch it up. A lot has happened this week. The main thing I want to talk about is Gymshark. So last week, Ecom Live invited 20 of us to go and see Gymshark's headquarters over in Birmingham. It was a really, really cool trip. And I was going into it, I was debating whether it would be that valuable. I was like, what can somebody who's doing this amount of revenue teach you? And I thought they're almost a bit archaic because they're no longer new. They're no longer probably at the leading edge like the younger brands are. They've probably got a few heads in, older grey hair people who, whilst you are very knowledgeable, aren't at the front of e-commerce knowledge these days. But with that being said, it was really eye-opening. Maybe not in terms of pure e-commerce, but in terms of business, in terms of brand building, there was a lot I learned. The main thing I learned, I think, was about brand and how to position yourself, which becomes really important as you try and grow and as you try and retain customers. It's how you relate, it's how people feel about a company. And I think Gymshark suffered from this themselves, victims of their own success. They grew really quickly and then they tried to be everything for everyone, and then they realized that's when they became uncool. And so they had to go back and be, we are the gym people. And so that's their whole catchphrase now, we do gym. And they really narrowed down on that. And it helped them grow again. And so when they found that purpose and they signed Sam Sulek and they signed Chris Bumstead and they signed David Late, I think you call him. Now, I'm not an influencer or a gym buff by any means. I go to the gym, but I'm aware of these people. And when they signed them again, they suddenly became cool. So I think that was really interesting. It was a real learning curve for them, which they were able to show us through. There were some other interesting bits, like they talked through procurement, supply chains, how they see marketing in terms of paid advertisements. I think the campus was the coolest thing, and seeing the culture there. The average age is 32 and they've over 1,000 staff, which is mental. And staff is really chill. I think we're pretty chill, laid back. We're kind of that new up and coming company, so no one here rocks about in suits. But even still, Gymshark, everybody in jogging bottoms. I suppose it is a gym brand, so jogging bottoms is gym, but it's still crazy to see. And it felt more like a university campus than an actual workspace. And I'm quite this is just from my early age, I think you need to be dressed for what you're going to work in terms of if I'm going to go and do work, I like to wear trousers. I don't want to wear jogging bottoms or shorts or stuff like that. It's just a psychological thing. But it was interesting to witness. And more than that, what was also good was talking to different people who were also on the trip. So there's 20 of us Irish e-com founders, and we were just coming up with a few ideas, and I got help on a new project I'm working on, which was great. Got help with a banking connection, which is really great. Even a new marketing strategy we're kind of exploring, I got some more context on. And then obviously just the camaraderie, building those connections with people who are also in the shit with you. Super cool. So overall, it was a really, really good trip. I learned way more than I thought going into it. Also this week, we have been exploring WhatsApp, SMS, all these different marketing channels. We're looking at paper run as well, which is just sending postcards out to people essentially. So we're exploring all these things and seeing, are they incremental, trying to weigh them up, and it's tough to do. So it's basically every time I'm exploring each one of these new marketing channels, I'm we have to essentially build a business case around it. What is the revenue from this? What's the cost? What's the contribution margin out of it? And it's great now that we have the team, because we've added people, we can start looking at these things and building out what we do. Because before, it would have just been me who would have had to lead on that. and my time's already stretched as it is. So it's great that we can explore these avenues. And what I'm finding is I'm just having to guide people on, well, this is the business outcome. So don't get sidetracked by, oh, the postcard looks really cool. But people are really aware of that as well, which is a great place to be in. We're also starting to work on website changes. So I've been playing a lot with Replo, which is like a web page builder. They've been on Shopify for a good few years, but they've rolled out this new thing called AI pages, which is really, really good. It's trained on all their data. It can help you spin up new landing pages really, really quick. Now, it's not fully there yet because you can't integrate it easily into Shopify, but you can integrate it. It's a lot of work though. It's not as good as it could be. But I think in 6 months' time, it's going to be exactly where we want it. And it'll mean we can spin up and test maybe 5-6 new landing pages each week, the same way we're testing new concepts each week. And I think that will be a really big boost for what we're trying to do in terms of paid acquisition. I think it'll be huge for finding landing pages that are better than previous and how we can grow them. I want to touch on a little bit of my personal life as well. So last weekend I went to watch Liverpool play and it was a great result. It was good catching up with friends who I hadn't seen in a long time, old friends, and it was a great weekend. The only downside coming out of it was because it was a 2-day bender. For people who don't know what a 2-day bender is, it's 2 days of consuming drinks. I was severely demotivated Monday, Tuesday of this week. Like, I just couldn't find the motivation. Don't get me wrong, discipline kicked in and I was in the office and I was doing the hard yards, but the clarity of thought was not as good as it normally is. And it was really eye-opening. And I was speaking to my friend then on Wednesday evening or Tuesday evening. We went to a game and he is teetotal. He's going to aim for all of this year, and he said the clarity of thought he feels right now is super sharp. He said there's a lot of research that it only takes 8 weeks actually before you're at your like peak clarity of thought once all those drugs have washed out of your system. I mean, I don't think I'll ever give up the drink, to be fair, but it's such a timely reminder that if you've got goals that you want to achieve, the drink is just, it's something that holds you back, and especially in this country and culture. It's worse than elsewhere. And in that ideal world, I would probably never drink again. It's very tough not to. A few other things to touch on. We've got our suppliers coming across this Friday, which is, it'll be good to see them, although it's a bit of a nightmare because they're staying Friday to Friday, and it's like, we have to host them on the weekend. As much as I'm all about the grind, my team members need breaks on the weekend, I need breaks on the weekend to see family and friends. So it's a bit challenging. We've had to work around that. I think maybe from them it was just a misstep. I think they might find it a bit challenging because we'll just give them different things to do on the Saturday and Sunday. But I'm looking forward to seeing them and catching up. Our relationship has been great with them. However, it gets strained when we don't spend enough time together and we just haven't seen them in 6 months. They've took their sweet time coming to see us. We talked about doing this way before January. That will be good to see them. In terms of paid ads, not much has been going on. We've rolled out our new offer for the 6 nations and it's been well received, I think. It's early days now and really we need this offer to do well for us to meet our February and March expectations, because 6 nations runs through to about middle of March. So if it does really well, then we're laughing and we'll smash our goals for February and March. We cut under our goals for January. Our spend was about 40,000 less than where we wanted it to be on our forecast, and that was purely because demand was low, but then creatives was low. And I think that's a learning coming out of it. So our creative department in November and December had to pitch into other parts of the business, and as a result, the amount of creatives they could produce in January, because they didn't have their preparation in December, was way less. So we had less net new ads coming into the ad account. We also had rugby stocked out, which held us back on the forecast. But overall, still really, like, it's a very good month. January always for us is a good month, strong with the rebuilds. But with a lot of lessons that we need to take into next year now. We need to keep the creative siloed come December. Next week, the salesman, Ross, starts. And that's going to get really exciting on the claw machines. We've had a few more come in. I mentioned last week about Times Square. We are now weighing up, do we hire salesmen for the US? Is it too quick a turnaround? That's maybe a thing. But I think if there's ever going to be a chance to like really nail the US and get into all these places, and for us the US is the long-term vision, then now is the time to do it. Anyway, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Thank you for watching along. That is episode 25 of Out of the Box filmed, and I'll see you all next week.